Hi gang, this is Mike G from Mr. GTV and MrMikeGarner.com, coming to you with another live on the 2nd of January 2024. And whenever you're watching this, the strategies that I'm going to talk about now are well worth considering and putting into practice because they are absolutely life-changing. And I'm talking about non-reaction. Let me just sign in. Let's see if I can sign in. Right, there we go. So what I'm talking about is when you're out and about in social interactions, or when you're amongst your family, or when you're in your workplace or workspace, it's very easy to become triggered and reactive, which means that you respond in a way which is either positive or negative. When you're triggered, it actually means that something that somebody else has done has made you do something. They've set the bait and you've accepted the bait and you've fallen into your own trap or their trap. Quite often what I find is that the more you wear your heart on your sleeve and the more that you reveal about yourself, the more people know how to press your buttons, how to push your buttons. It's rather like, let me just one moment. So that wasn't professional, but there's a remote control. It's rather like somebody knows how to press number one button on your remote control to make you angry, one to make you sad, one to make you guilty. That one works really well with sensitive people. What you tend to find is that guilt throwers are very good at finding guilt catchers. Are you a guilt catcher? Are you a kind person? Do you feel guilty when somebody puts you on the spot, or somebody gaslights you, somebody disrespects you, somebody puts you down, somebody points out maybe your faults and your flaws, because what they've done is they've listened very carefully, possibly, to things that you've said about yourself in the past, so they know your vulnerabilities. I think there's one or two things that I want to say about this, that only talk about your sensitive personality, only talk about things that really are heartfelt to you, your vulnerabilities, with people that you trust and respect, and maybe people who share those stories with you. I really have learnt to trust nobody but myself. And if somebody does earn my trust, it's after a lot of observation and a lot of testing. So maybe I'll say something and see whether or not they leak that by way of gossip to other members of my social circle or work group. The other thing that's really good to do is to listen whether or not people are bad-mouthing or gossiping or telling tales on other people, because if they do that, they're very likely to do the same about you. So these people that you shouldn't trust reveal themselves. So just listen. You've got two ears and one mouth. Just listen. So being non-reactive is being, in my opinion, the witness. Just witness what's going on. And if something's not of your liking, then you've got two choices. You either do some inner work and stay there and get control of yourself, or you decide that you're in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people, and you make, a polite reason to leave. You don't have to make people wrong, because they are what they are, and in my opinion, you've created them to learn from. So quite often I've turned up at courses, or I've turned up for social events or work events, or I've employed somebody or collaborated with somebody, and it doesn't work out. Well, to me, that's not a waste of time. It's not what I planned maybe, but it's a learning curve. And the thing is to learn and remember and move on. Don't fall backwards, fall forwards. So be the witness and learn to listen more and say less. As I say, 2 ears and 1 mouth. As we go into 2024 or whenever you're listening to this, you can start now to listen more and say less. Don't reveal yourself. Be more mysterious. You don't have to tell everybody about yourself. You might choose to answer questions, but you don't even have to answer questions. You can create what I call an elevator pitch. If you met somebody in an elevator, a lift, an escalator, and you're introducing yourself, there's probably one sentence or a couple of sentences that briefly give people enough information to know something about you. You don't have to tell them all your stories. And quite often people in relationships, what they do is during the honeymoon period, which is the introductory period, they tell them far too much. And of course, this wearing your heart on your sleeve and being honest very often backfires. You've given everybody the ammunition to use against you. And the reason that your enemies know so much about you is because you've told them. So stop telling people too much. As I say, be mysterious. And then when something happens in the moment that puts you into what I call an on guard situation, where you go into flight, fright, or freeze, or a milder version of that, which is dislike, disgust, disbelief, frustration, then just literally step back, create a gap, a physical gap, take a breath, pause for consideration, and decide what outcome you want. Don't knee-jerk reaction. Don't blurt out something, because something expressed, once it's out there, it can't be withdrawn. You've said it. So don't speak hastily. Always pause for consideration before response. And if you're not able to step back, in other words, if you're in an interview or if you are in a close proximity with somebody and you can't literally physically step back, just in your mind, mentally create a gap, put some protection around yourself, which is an imaginary thing. And all you have to do is go to Mr. GTV and put in #protection, self-protection. And there's some metaphors and some visualizations and some inner change work all about putting protection around you. And I'm sure you can find it on YouTube about protecting yourself metaphysically. But you can put up some mental protection, guard yourself, put on some mental and emotional armor, which they can't physically see, and just do some breathing. People don't have to know that you are getting anxious or agitated or frustrated, upset, fearful. You can breathe and get control of your physiology and your biology. Every brain wave has a breathing pattern, so every breathing pattern creates a brain wave, and if your brain wave's going into overload, you can breathe yourself out of it. Changes your body chemistry, your physiology, your psychology. So just practice some breathing, calm down, slow your heart down, and either physically take a step back or just create the mental appearance of get to a position of safety. This is where safe place imagery comes in if you do visualization. That even though you're in a threatening or a confrontational situation or a volatile situation, because you've been triggered, what you can do is you can actually imagine yourself on a beach or in the jacuzzi or in your chosen safe place, and then witness from then. And clearly, if it's too uncomfortable, then you don't want to volunteer yourself back into that circumstance. And if you do keep turning up for something that triggers you and is unpleasant, well then that's your fault. Learn from these situations that trigger you, learn from these people that trigger you, and don't volunteer and invite more of it into your life. And what's really useful is if you practice silence. There's nothing wrong with comfortable silence. There is quite often a clash of airtime if two people are talking. What you really want is you want person A talking, person B listening, comfortable gap, and person B responding, person A listening. But if there's two dominant characters, then there's a clash. And if there's two passive characters who are a bit introvert, then there's uncomfortable silence. But get comfortable with silence and get comfortable with listening. You'll learn far more about the other person. Mostly they'll reveal themselves as to what sort of personality they are. Type A, type B, aggressive, dominant, passive, whether they are an intellectual, an analytic, an expressive, an amiable, all sorts of personality types, whether they're driven, whether they are easy to get on board and they'll follow you, or whether or not they're trying to control you. Once you've got to measure that, then you'll know the best way to interact with them. And I meet all those sorts of people. And, depending on the purpose of the interaction, the communication, all those personality types are useful as long as it works for you and not against you. And you'll be the judge of that by listening, getting a sense of it. Also the non-verbal communication. How does it feel? Get a feeling about somebody. Quite often they're saying all the right things, which just don't feel right, and we're very intuitive to that once we tune into that. So during 2024, engage all your senses: touch, taste, sight, sound, and smell. What's it look like? What's it sound like? What's it feel like? What's it taste like? What does it smell like? And then engage your extra senses. What's your gut feelings about it? And just don't react. Learn stillness. Become poker faced. You can smile, but just be still. You don't have to become a grinning idiot. You don't have to become excited with a smile and childish. You can be mature and smile and confident and positive and assertive and powerful. And being kind doesn't mean being weak. So this year, 2024, or as I say, whenever you're listening to this, just become the witness. Be aware of your own triggers, be aware of your own sensitivities, and be confident with your vulnerabilities. Because I'm vulnerable, I'm sensitive, I'm an empath. So sometimes things come at me, but I put my protection on so that more things come from me than at me, and the things that come at me bounce off. And I'm able to assess the situation and then take a breath, create a gap, pause for consideration before I respond. Become a better communicator, be less reactive, be more in control, and you'll get better outcomes. If anything I've said resonates, or if you want to chat, I'm here for that. And check back for more tomorrow from me, Mike G, for free on Mr. G TV. Be powerful. Don't be triggered. Don't react. Be non-reactive. Step into your power. God bless.